Check, check, quick sound check. Can everybody hear us loud and clear? How we doing, Emery?
Doing great. It's another quirky kickoff Sunday.
Check, check, quick sound check. Loud and clear. How we doing, Emery? Sounds good. I can hear you here. Looks clear. Let's get a conversation in the chat really quick that everyone can hear us and see us. But I think we are good to go.
All right. Thanks so much for joining me, Jay. I always love it when we get to spend time together on Market Kickoff. It's been a minute. You've been traveling and doing lots of things, so it'll be great to get your take on the markets. I know you do at the buzzer every day and bring us up to speed. Just wondering what you're thinking about what we might see at the open today. Which instruments are you staring down?
So for me, I look at the equities. So I'll be looking at the Nasdaq, and I'll be looking at gold as well. We were pretty close to making an all-time high, and we're not far off of it right now. Friday's close was extremely bullish, ending the week almost with no upper wick. We had, the high of the day on Friday, or high of the week, was 23,767 in the Nasdaq, and we closed around 765. So extremely bullish close on Friday. Of course, anything can change. We know that a tariff headline is right around the corner at any time, but yeah, this looks extremely bullish to me. So I will be looking at the Nasdaq, see if we get some buying momentum into the open. I normally don't trade around that Globex open, Emery, but it does help to kind of frame the sentiment for the rest of the day. So I usually wait that first half an hour, and then go from there. But we'll see where we open up. How are you feeling about it?
So, since I've learned a ton about focusing on volume with you and also, you know, Hogue and so many others that talk about order flow and volume profiles and that sort of thing, the one very interesting thing I'm watching is that last it looks like it happened at about, is that 2? No, 3:30 Eastern time. We had a pretty bearish candlestick that hit our VWAP and then really recovered all of it. So I am in agreement with you that this is potentially bullish because there was one, a ton of volume that came in. Not only that it held the low, it ticked the low of the VWAP and moved it up. So if you are setting up an overnight, do you trade the overnight? Do you
Uh,
trade the opening range?
Usually not. It's funny because I was actually just, we're starting VIP season three, coming up soon.
Hmm.
And one of the things we
Hmm.
talked to the VIPs about was, establishing your business hours. And for me, the overnight session is just not my best business hours. But I also watched a documentary over the weekend of Paul Tudor Jones, and he was breaking down how he traded, certain markets during the overnight session, and then focused on the equities, in the morning. Um, so if I do trade overnight, it's gold. We've seen some pretty decent movement
Hmm.
in gold. And if I happen to be awake at 3 a.m. Eastern, I'll take a look at crude oil. But I try to keep my try to keep my equities trading to the New York session.
All right. Okay, cool. Cool, cool. So these kickoff levels, I don't know if they're the ones for today. Let me um refresh my screen to see if they are. And if they are, it looks like they are because this might be yesterday's high or Friday's trading high. And that's, no, that's Thursday's high, isn't it? Yep. 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 So we are waiting on those formations. We do see upside pressure. My thought is if we could come back and test this 64.15 area, it might provide a nice uh, pop that could move us to the edge. The only fly in the ointment for a breakaway formation I'm seeing comes from a momentum event. And we're sitting looking at um, a, a high here from Thursday and then closing on the high on Friday. That normally is a space that'll give us that move to the upside. And if it doesn't, then we'll know that we've got more negative pressure if we lose 6,400. I think losing 6,400 is going to be critical because it's the volume point of control for 2 days of trading. And that's using the volume profile. I did realize I was teaching one of the classes in the VIP, and I was explaining to folks, and I realized that not a lot of people understand exactly what's being plotted here. So down here, obviously, it's volume by time,
Right.
but up here, it's volume by price. So it's giving you two sets of information, and when they collide, when the volume by time matches the volume by price, like it is here, it really does give us a framework for moving around in the charts. Do you want to look at the NQ together?
Yeah, let's take a look. I can either pull up my charts or you can
Yeah,
pull, yeah.
let's pull up yours. Let's see what yours show.
Let me switch over here to the NQ really quick. Transition over to my charts. All right. So looking at the Nasdaq again, we had a pretty bullish close. We made new highs after the close, actually, in the Nasdaq, which was extremely bullish, in my opinion. After we closed, we were still
Same.
ticking higher. Um, if we look at a 30-minute, we'll start with a higher time frame first. Uh, Go out to a 30-minute chart. I don't know about you, Anne Marie. I never feel comfortable buying the all-time high or buying the breakout in a market.
So, yeah.
I'm always going to look for a pullback. I'm looking at the 20 moving average here on the 30-minute chart, which is down at 23,660. Also, kind of the high of this breakout that we had, or the low of this breakout that we had. So I wouldn't mind a pullback. I'm also not naive to think that we may not get that pullback. Right, there is this 30-minute candle here. The upper extreme of that range is 722. So if we pull back into this demand area with no real selling, I might be more inclined to kind of buy in this zone. But I think we really need to see how the market opens up. I saw someone in the chat say that over the weekend there were some chip deals, AMD and Nvidia China chip deals. So
Yeah.
that might just send us higher. We'll see how the market responds, but yeah, just looking for good places to buy. It's technically not buying the high because we're still little less than a percent, little less than 0.5% off that all time high. So there is some room here, but it's never a comfortable feeling for me buying that breakout.
Yeah, you know what? Also super interesting that's different between the ES and the NQ is that the highest volume of the ES was at the end of the day, and the highest volume of the NQ was at the beginning of the day. I don't know what to make of that, but it's certainly both of those candles for the NQ were bullish. And so I think we get ourselves a little bit of a runaway train. It could be fueled by, you know, short covering. That might be something to really think about carefully. Let's take a look at the YM. Do you ever trade the YM or
I
not
do. I
really?
traded a little bit more in my personal account than in Topstep accounts, but yeah, I
Yeah,
do.
yeah,
I think right now the Nasdaq is showing. If I'm reading this right, I'm just looking at the order book in the Nasdaq on
yeah,
a different platform, and it's
yeah. Let me
showing
do that.
a gap up, potentially 760s. It's showing a gap up. We'll see what happens. Market's open in about 2 minutes, but
Oh, all right.
it is
Let's
showing
do it.
a little bit of a gap up right here. But what are you seeing in the Dow, Emery?
Well, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 days in the volume profile, and you can see how congested they are. They're just sitting right in the middle of this pocket. I think I'm going to make these, um, I think I'm going to make these just a little thinner, but I'm also going to change the number of rows because it gives me a little bit more granularity. Gonna put about 50 in there. I just like that better. But you can see clearly we are sitting in a space where if you let it fall out of the range and wait for it to come back into the range, the trade is easily from the bottom to the top over or from the top to the bottom. You just have to wait until it gets back inside of the range if you're just looking at these 4 days of motion. And so, if you're looking for something that's compact, a lot of these volume profile traders will allow the blow off top, watch for a reversal pattern with the candlesticks, and then once it gets inside of the range, they'll start levering with size into the bottom of the range and get out. And so you can see that happening with the candlestick formations off of the selling that occurred on, what day was that? Was that Friday when no, Thursday. It was
Thursday.
Thursday.
Yeah.
And yeah, and we're sitting in these crazy formations that show 1 day up, 1 day down, 1 day up, 1 day down, 1 day up, 1 day down. And it's I think it's tough for traders overall.
Yeah, the Dow looks a little bit different than oh, there we are. We are open.
Here we are. Yeah, let's take a
And we
look at
gapped
that.
up right to that 760 area that in the I guess it wasn't necessarily a gap. We were already kind of trading up there.
Hmm.
No gap.
So the high volume area would make me think, because they're both bullish, that the buy zone is actually somewhere around here at 23,680. Now, it's pretty far away. And if you're thinking to yourself, all right, I'm going to look at a tighter candlestick formation, and I'm just going to, if you said, hey, everything's really bullish, I'm going to take the breakout up above that zone, you could easily do that and do a stop buy at 778. You just want to make sure that if you bought there, that you were careful about where you put your stop, because if it shoots up and then starts retracing, it could be a problem. But my thought is we've got high volume candlesticks occurring on the 9:30 candle of August the 7th. That's Thursday. Another 30-minute candlestick comes 10-minute in the next area. So two very big volume candlesticks. And then the 30-minute candlestick formation from Friday, and then the one at 3 o'clock. So it could come in and stop dead at 3. If there's some of you in here that are crazy scalping and you want to short, it should go back into this higher volume area. That's, let's mark it out
Price wise, you're looking at
here.
somewhere around like 680, that 680 zone.
Um, Actually 23,742 looks like 720. 720 looks like the place they'll first try to bounce. My thought is they'll come right into the big levels a little bit lower. But if you're thinking about a scalp short, there's there definitely is opening up. I just don't trade those shorter cycles. I try to trade with trend, and I look for the big volume bars where everybody's been sitting around. So I find my edge, and it gives me a little bit of um, confidence that I can stick it out in the trade. But I would suspect, and let me open up something that shows my cumulative delta here, as well as what's going on in the frame. So yeah, I think that pulls in there. Let's take a peek. Let's see what the ES might do. And yeah, there's the same candlestick formation. So my thought is that the buy at 64.15 is a pretty solid one. If it doesn't really hop in right away, it could move to the bottom of that big wick, which is, 64.03, and that's 12 points of risk. So it's pretty hefty, but it could. So my thought is that's where they pop into this big volume candle right here, come to the base of it, and then see if they can lift from that edge. Now, in terms, you said you watched something with Paul Tudor Jones. I love watching his videos.
Oh
He
yeah.
says some of the most interesting things.
Yep.
But did he say something about trading gold in the middle of the night?
Yeah, yeah. So the documentary is from like the 90s or like late 80s, and it was like just showing his whole process, and he was trading the currencies and gold overnight, and like so currency futures and gold overnight, and would trade the equities in the morning. And I think it makes sense, right?
Oh,
We see a ton
okay.
of volume come in. We
Yeah.
see a ton of volume come into
Yeah, we
gold
do.
overnight. That Shanghai,
Yeah.
Tokyo,
That's exactly right. That's
so
exactly right. I read a really strange article over the weekend, and it said something about um, the trimming of certain kinds of commodities, gold, platinum, silver, uh, because some of the countries that have been accumulating actually need the dollars to move. I don't know if it actually made a ton of sense to me, but we can clearly see what Jay's talking about in terms of the large activity that happens in the pre-market area. And so let's look at Friday's pre-market and see if we see anything big. Notice it's a lot more volume than normal. We have this 30-minute candlestick here that we broke down through. But the biggest candle has been all of this selling here, which made me go, that's what I looked up. I was like, selling in gold. What's going on with that? Because of the very big candlestick at 2 o'clock. And it's a really weird time to see all of that gold dump. I don't know if it's got to do with, it doesn't have to do with a roll, right? We're not rolling.
gold,
So,
no, no,
but
not in rollover. That sell-off in gold, there were some tariff headlines last week, right,
oh, fair
where
enough.
it was tariffs on Swiss gold, I believe it was, and then there was some time, and that was the initial sell-off on Friday.
Mhm.
Thursday night into going into Friday's price action, and then the second sell-off during the day was comments from the White House saying, "Hey, we're going to confirm that messaging basically, right? Where are we actually putting tariffs on gold?" So yeah, T word is starting to affect all of the markets that we trade. I kind of felt
Mhm.
like gold was safe, but it doesn't feel like that anymore.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. If I were to say to you, and what I'd like for you to do is go, here's why I wouldn't do that, or have you considered? Because I love getting to pick your brain. And I think it's super important, traders. If you are trying to find someone that's going to help you trade better, they have to think differently than you. They
I like
cannot
that.
think the same way. If they think the same way, you're going to have the same blind spots, the absolute same blind spots. So, my thought is the following. If I were to say, hey, I'm looking at this great big volume event, I expect I probably should trade a micro with this, but I'll keep my eyeballs on it super tight. So I either, whoops, that's not what I want. I want to buy stop above my 30-minute candlestick formation,
Okay, and you're
right?
using okay that high volume candle. Okay, I can see that.
Yes, the high volume candle we had at 2 o'clock, and then a sell stop underneath the low. What would you say to me if I were saying to you, Jay, I want to do this?
So let me
What
switch
would you
over.
tell me to look for? What would you say, "Hey, what about XYZ?"
I'm
What
gonna
would you
switch over
say?
to my screen, and I could
Yes,
see
please.
that
That's perfect. Perfect.
from a price perspective. I could see that right where that's the high of that 30-minute candle is 34.67, right? The low of it is 34.45. I have a VWAP, which is this red line attached to that candle, and it's pretty much a flat line. So what it's telling me is from the point that that candle printed, volume is pretty much flat, and we can see it in price as well, right? But we have to take every day as its own day. So really, all of this price action here. We can see it, it's on lower volume. I'm going to kind of ignore this price action and then go down to a shorter time frame. And now I'm going to start from today, right? Because we're day trading here. We're not longer term investing in these Topstep accounts. So from today, what is the market saying about this range? So now I have that high volume candle gives me price areas to look at, right? 68 at the
Mm-hmm.
highs, 45
Mm-hmm.
at the lows. And I'll clean this up just a little bit. But we got
Wait, what is the size of your candlestick?
so I went down to a 3 minute chart.
Okay, great.
But it's
Okay,
crazy because
perfect.
the 3 minute range and the 30 minute range is exactly the same because that candle was so crazy.
Monstrous. Yeah.
Yeah, but the high is 34.68 and the low is 34.45. Now what I'm looking at, Emery, is from today, since we're trading today's price action, how has the market responded to it? So if I was to buy up here, I want to see VWAP from this session leave that range because what that means at that point is not only is price leaving the range, but volume is going with it. And I want to get in flow with the market because otherwise, what happens is we can see from the time that candle printed, right? Let's look at this.
Mm-hmm.
We have this high volume candle. If we look at VWAP here, price looked like it was going to break out, but volume stayed in the middle of the range, which is telling me range bound market,
Mm.
right? You see how flat that is? So new session, right? Traders have new opportunities here. If they're going to buy it and get continuation,
Mm-hmm.
that volume needs to leave that range, in my opinion.
Okay. So an alternative setup
Hmm.
might be because if we expand it out, we can see how range bound the market is,
Right.
right? I mean, it's really range bound. So an alternative setup might be shorting at the top of the range and buying at the bottom.
Correct. Yeah. So we can actually kind of see it here on that initial spike in gold. We didn't get exactly to the high of that candle, but we got to, and these are shorter time frame. These are 3 minute candles, right? But we got up to this, and everything is a zone in the markets. But we got up to this zone here that we've seen price rejection before. On Friday, right? We wicked up into this area 34.66 a couple of times and rejected, and we did the exact
Mm-hmm.
same thing so far this morning. So, is this a quick scalp trade? It's good enough for 5 points, 6 points, but this area, all these wicks up here are rejecting up near the high of where that selling came in. So yeah, the trade would be shorting up here or shorting up at the upper extreme, buying the lower extreme until volume says we're done trading these prices.
Otherwise, okay. All right. So I like what you're saying. I I think I see what you're saying. And so what I might do is I think yeah, I like that. So here's what I did. I left the stop market buy. It's going to be my stop, right? This is how you can sort of fake a bracket order until bracket orders get here for us. A lot of us go, gosh, how do I know where to put my stop if I don't, if it doesn't populate until my trade gets triggered? And this is the way that you can do it because automatically, if you say, hey, listen, I want to sell up here, but I want my stop to be really tight, that's how you can do that, right? Because when it comes in and it does its thing, it's going to simply tell you, hey, there's nothing left to buy or sell. And so all the orders disappear. Does that make sense? Do you ever do that, Jay?
So right now you have a limit buy, at the lower extreme of that range, and then you have the stop market sell right below that.
Yes.
Okay,
So that's my stop,
got you,
right?
got you.
So
Okay,
I built in the stop because I don't want to wait to have, a 400 point risk event
mm,
for each one of these.
got you.
I would rather tighten it up because, um, that's how I can sort of force a bracket order
Makes sense.
before my order comes out.
So
Hopefully
so
that makes sense,
it
everybody.
does. Do you have so then you have the auto risk settings in Top Step X? You have those turned off, right? Like in the in
I
this?
don't, but here's the
Okay.
thing. If I have one contract that executes and then a stop that rips it off the table,
Okay.
everything disappears.
Got you.
Yeah,
Okay.
it
Got you. Got you.
it's not a hanging order anymore.
Got you. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. Purple tip in the chat said, if you wait for VWAP to show you direction and leave the range, you're probably going to miss the move. And there's a likelihood of that. I think for myself, any
It's
moves,
better to have it confirmed.
yeah, yeah, if I see price go and volume doesn't, um, at least in my mind, I think
Agreed.
I'll get a
Yeah,
pullback. I'll get a pullback, right? It's going to pull back, and if it doesn't, it's okay. It's not my trade. And I think
yeah,
it's important to know that as well, right? When is it not your trade?
yeah,
Um,
absolutely. I think patience is like the hardest thing for us to
it really is.
maintain as traders.
It really is, Emery.
So tough. So tough. All right, let's see what the ES is doing.
We almost got that
All
pullback
right,
to the 14s.
lollygagging around. Sorry?
We got a little bit of a pullback. It pulled back down to 18s. Didn't get all the way down to 14.
It creeps me out when my phone answers me.
Oh,
It thinks I'm talking to it.
Siri, yeah. Oh,
It
sorry.
really does.
Sorry to
Okay.
anyone who has an iPhone. I just woke up your phone. Uh,
Okay, so here's the fade in the NQ working really nicely. See how it comes down into this volume candlestick formation. Feels like it's kind of grinding its way down. Interesting. Let's see what the cumulative volume is saying about this morning. I mean, this afternoon. Cumulative delta, excuse me. I mean, it's definitely bullish. It's not bearish. The 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 dome is thin. It's very thin.
I see. So in the Nasdaq, we pulled back to Friday's high. It looks like 23,724. We're getting a little bit more of a pullback here, but 23,724 was that. Do you look at that often, Emery? It looks like that was regular session trading hour high.
The
Yeah. How
highs?
how often do
Oh,
you pay
definitely.
attention to prior day highs and lows?
Every day. Every day I look at prior high, prior low, open and close. And then inside of that, I look for the candlesticks with the highest volume. And those sorts of things sort of frame me out to go, okay, where did big money move? And can I follow them in their retests? Because take a look at this. If you thought about it that way and you'd said, all right, I'm going to draw a box around my opening candle of Thursday in the NQ, you'll see the opening candle on Friday opened below it, went to the base of it, went all the way to the top, and then they sat there for an hour. But the moment literally the candle closes above it, you've got a long trade there because you've got 2 days of volume confirmation telling you that they bought at that same range and now they're trying to break out. My thought is always try to get to the 50% range of the square that I draw between the volume event.
Okay.
Sometimes it leaves me in the dust. But most of the times, if I use a 50%, it'll come back, it'll give it to me. Sometimes it leaves me in the dust and I have to chase it. But you can see what happened. By the time it broke out, it gave you another retest event of the high of Thursday. Look at how many times it came in there and tested it. Could have got shaken out here, but you get back in 1, 2, 3, 4 times before it literally takes off for what is that? Almost 200 points, right? 150 points. And so that's a really great way. Now, the question might be, why does something like that work? And I have to tell you, I did not look at volume a lot way back in the day. I
Okay.
was all technicals.
Yeah.
And I started learning the TPO, the time price opportunity tool, and I started focusing on volume. And then remember I put that question up, I think it was Just Us Coaches, and I said, I'm trying to understand order flow,
Yeah.
but right? That was the
Yep.
question I had about order flow. And Coach Jack sent me a one sentence note, and he said, prices always move to where the volume is. And I thought to myself, I don't know if I believe him. And so, because I'm a scientist. I'm not going to take anything at face value.
Right.
I'm going to go
You have to dissect it.
and yes, and I went down the rabbit hole, and I can tell you, I came up and I was ready to tip my hat to him. He is 100% right. And what makes this analysis great to wrap your arms around is that you don't have to look at moving averages. You don't have to look at momentum indicators. You don't have to look at where the VWAP is. I mean, you can, but if you just stare it down and you go, well, everybody's buying there. So I best be doing some buying, or I better not be doing any selling unless I'm trying to take a quick snap trade. And so it has opened my eyes to so much. And then on top of all of that, when I really started watching you and trying to break down how you looked at the markets, and I noticed your 3-minute candlesticks and the volume that you associate with it, and you wait for those breaks to see if they break above or if they hold below. And I thought, this is the same theme. You better start focusing on volume more. And it's been it's made trading much more relaxing.
Oh, nice. That's good to hear. That's
It's
good to hear.
true. I'm
Yeah.
I am wound as tight as a grandfather clock, literally. And the cuckoo that pops out. So I want something to chill me out, and I have really enjoyed it. Now, you do have to be patient. You gotta wait, and sometimes you gotta wait for a while. But if you're staring down the flow, you can sort of anticipate, okay, I see that they broke down here. They did it all on diminishing volume. They started to lift. They held the base, but if they start making higher lows, they're going to try to get back up in here because that's where all the volume is. Tremendous way to start staring down your charts. Oh, do we have any questions?
Let's
Anybody
see.
talking about anything interesting? Or
Uh,
thank you, Andrew. Always appreciate you being here. Thanks for answering some of that stuff, Jay. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. We got Tess. Tess in the chat says Coach Jack doesn't say much, but everything that comes out of his mouth makes a lot of sense. I
Oh my
agree.
gosh, it's gold.
I
Yeah,
agree.
I'm a
Uh,
huge fan of that guy. He does not mince words.
no.
And yeah, just a big fan of Coach
Uh,
Jack.
Mr. Moon has a question in the chat here. Price always moves
Yes.
to where the volume is. Does that work only during regular trading hours?
No, it works. It works everywhere. So the question might be, how do you mean that? Right? So this is the nuance of looking at volume and price with time and the collection of prints. So if you're staring this down and you say to yourself, oh, that's the opening range, that's the most volume, prices are going to come where the volume is, so I'm going to go long. That's not what that means. The notion of prices go to where the volume is wow, let me see how I use way too many words.
Okay.
My family always tells me, "Would you stop? Just try and use 50 less words, please." So, what this means is it's an area to watch because old haunts, that's visiting spots, are very likely to be revisited. Doesn't mean they're going to get revisited 5 minutes from now. Doesn't mean it's going to be revisited 5 hours from now, but it is going to say things about what the traders feel. So let's talk about it. So, opening range candle bullish. All of a sudden, the next candlestick comes in, a lot less volume, but it closes almost under the low of that opening range. So, what does that tell you? It tells you a bunch of people went, going low, and they get the rug pull. So, if the rug pull is potentially happening to these traders, what might they do? Turn around and go short or just get out of the trade.
Yep.
But that action there tells you, they wanted to make a stand and the tug of war pulled them in the opposite direction. So now, if you're bullish, you have to say, wait a second, that's not very good for the bulls right here. That's the largest volume candlestick of the day. We can see that in hindsight. But in the morning, that's normally the largest candle. And all the traders went, thanks, I'll take that. And they got out or they turned around and went short. And so when you see something like that, this should be in the back of your mind going, okay, this is the lowest area they bought up on this candlestick. So it's either going to be new resistance, a la they're going to go to where prices were, or it's going to become support again. We never know which one, but we can look at it and go, they're rejecting it. They just made a new low. How about I take a short there and I'll trade it into old support or old resistance? Always look to the left. If you look to the left, you'll figure out where prices are supposed to go, either with an extension for drawing or something that'll tell you, hey, old resistance, new support. So when we hear that, this was the thing that wrapped me around the axle. When Jack gave me that one, Coach Jack gave me that one sentence, I was like, I don't know if I believe him. And it was because I understood immediately there was a nuance to the statement. And so I began to dig in. And here's the thing, some of us are in the market to make a quick buck, some of us are in the market to supplement our income, some of us are in the market to absolutely change our lives. And if you're in the market to change your life, you've got to learn to love the work.
Mm,
And loving the
100%.
work means digging in, looking at the things, not only, oh, that went up. Can you see with the little bit of information from the past? Can you see what the traders were fighting about and the decisions that they came to? If you can storyboard the market, it's going to be much more enjoyable. It becomes absolutely incredible to watch
Man,
and
that's such a
and
great point.
work with.
I love what you just said there. If you can storyboard the market, and I talk about him a lot, but my trading mentor, only person I ever took classes from, we would do exactly that, right? Like, who is telling the story today, right? Who's the dominant market participant? What are their intentions? What are they trying to achieve for the day? Instead of saying, "Hey, I need 50 points out of the Nasdaq today," because what he would tell us is, you could get that 50 points, but the market doesn't care how you want to get that 50 points, right? It's going to present it to you its own way, right? So identifying the story, and that's why I pay so much attention to volume, because there are way bigger market participants than me, and they have,
Exactly.
they have intentions as well, right? The person that's trading 1,000 lot in the Nasdaq doesn't want to lose money either, right? Whether they're hedging or whatever they're doing, there are real intentions behind that, and they got big enough pockets to maybe move things around a little bit if things aren't going their way.
Exactly.
So paying attention to
Yeah,
them, and then it also takes you away from yourself, right? Where again, I want something out of the market doesn't care what I want. But if I can get a piece of
exactly.
it after telling their story, it's a lot we can do here. Good stuff, Anne
Yeah,
Marie. Storyboard.
absolutely. Thanks so much. And really, For me, I'm so fascinated with the market. I truly am fascinated with it. And I don't even know why I think I'm fascinated with it because it's very hard. It's not, it's a simple thing to look at, but it has so many layers. It's sort of looking at E equals mc squared, right? Energy equals mass times the speed of light squared, right? That's what that means.
Right.
But trying to derive that or understand the individual pieces, it just takes a little bit of digging in. And I have to tell you that, the markets are way more simplistic than E equals mc squared. They're way more, but our brain gets in the way and we start watching 52 different things. And so my goal when I get on here is to say, hey, how can we focus on less so we can make more? And I
Mm.
think that that's a critical thing for us to come down to. Look for the elements that actually give you a decision, an actual decision. And whatever those might be, try to not make it more than two or three things, or you'll wrap yourself around the axle. I promise you, because I've done that
Oh
a
yeah.
thousand times.
Same here.
A thousand times.
Same here. It's like this has to line up with this, and they all 16 time frames have to all be pointing in the same direction
I
for me to take a one lot micro. It's just like, no.
I
It's just like,
know.
dude, relax.
I know. Oh, isn't
Yeah.
that's so true though.
Yeah, it
It's
really
so
is.
true.
Um,
All right, we're pretty let's take a look at micro Bitcoin. This had some pretty interesting movement. Whoa, daggone it.
gap up.
I knew something was going to happen. Yes. All right, so let's take a little daily look at this thing. So this chart has been a little bit of, um, it's in a very interesting patch right now. If we just take a look at this motion over here, we can see many days they bought the bottom and sold the top, right? Now they're recovering. The highest volume candlestick sitting in the range for this time is the one that occurred on what day is that? August the 1st. All right, we had that great big sell off, came into the base. Notice, you ever wonder where a chart's going? You can usually look to the left. And if you could find definitive spots where you go, yup, everybody sold there, or yup, everybody bought there, it's usually going to give you a pretty good idea of what to watch for. So now we're gapping up, but we're gapping up in the middle of this brand new accumulation space. So where's it headed? Probably back up to 121,000. So if we're staring that down, we draw ourselves a line. We see this big pocket. I think I'm going to draw one more line right here. Let's see if there's a trade that we can easily see from a volume perspective that's telling us what's going on. First, let's look for 30-minute volume events. The last big 30-minute volume event was on the 7th.
Yep.
And yep, look at us come to the top of it. And then here's the bottom of it.
We gapped well above that. We kind of left that in the dust.
Yeah, for sure. So it could be a gap and go, but I hate buying the tippy tops of anything. And so I'm going to look to see if I can get in on, I'm going to leave those for overnight. Why am I picking this? One, high volume area on Thursday. Traders sat in there all day long, fell out a little, came back, made a big new patch in the volume point of control right here. That's what this big line is right here. And now this is obviously news that's running it. I don't know what it is, But if I'm thinking to myself, okay, the volume is going to tell me where price is likely to return, I'm going to wait for it down here. Maybe it takes me all day. Maybe it takes me all night, but I'm willing to do it. Actually, I'll give it
Would
a
you sell into that level, Emery?
I wouldn't.
Higher time
The
frame is saying
reason I
uptrend.
yeah, yeah, I don't want to go counter trend because one, I'm not watching the market,
Right.
right? I'll be asleep for this to do it. And two, I it's clearly got a break that's showing all the volume that has been accumulating, and now they're doing some distribution of some kind, right? These people that have been the shorter term traders that are saying, yep, I'm going to buy this. I'm going to buy this, and when it gets to X, I'm going to sell it. And so the question might be exactly where is X? What is that? What is that next high that we're staring down? And if we look at that, you know, it's it's got that run all the way up there, and there's a ton of heavy congestion here. So I wouldn't be surprised if they got to the top here at this lower high. See all the wicks?
Yep.
Tons of wicks, and they're all selling wicks. And so I'm willing to let them go into that area. On the daily space, I'm really sitting in a low volume node if it'll come in and hit me at support. So I really like that. And on top of that, from this candlestick on August the 1st, I really don't have a ton of risk because they're micros. It could pop into that range and then pop right back out. So a lot of good things going there, but I'd be nervous. I have tried shorting when this price action's moving up, and I have had
It's a tough
my
time.
face peeled with a vegetable grater. Yeah, it's horrible.
Yeah,
It's been
not fun.
horrible. So yeah, really, really bad.
Uh,
All right, what do we got here?
do we want to take a look at what's on the economic calendar for the week? I was looking for the weekly kickoff email. I didn't see
Yes.
it come out yet, but we do have some
I didn't.
data
Yeah,
coming out.
let's do it.
So let's take a look really quick at that. I'm also in some practice trades here. I was just clicking around on some stuff, but we don't need to look at that. Let's take a look at the Trader Hub for what we have later this week. U.S. China tariff deadline is the 12th. So pay attention to that. That's Tuesday. U.S. and China tariff deadline. So if you weren't expecting any volatility this week, we understand that that has the potential to bring
Reevaluate.
a ton of volatility. Also, on that day, we have inflation data, right? So CPI that same day on the 12th, that's Tuesday. For any of our agriculture traders, if you trade soybeans, corn, wheat, anything like that, we do have the WASD report, which is basically, you know, FOMC or NFP for the ags. Do not hold a position in the ags into that WASD report. That's some of the craziest movement I've seen on the chart really ever. That's 12 p.m.
Seriously, which one?
12 p.m. Eastern time on the 12th. The WASD report. You can see it. It's here for wheat, soybeans, cotton, corn. If you're in an ag position at that time, so right after, we may have some pretty good trades. I look at it the same way I look at like an NFP for the equities. We get that crazy spike of volatility, and then you're going to get the market's response to it. Right? There are some market participants that are you know they're not speculators, Anne Marie, right? They're end users of some of these products, and that WASD report is going to affect their business. For us as speculators, when you have something that causes that wave, right? We know it. There's opportunity on the other side of that. So I don't want to try to guess where the markets are going to move as that report drops, but afterwards, there's some potential volatility there. So that's Tuesday at 12 p.m. Eastern time. Of course, we got crude inventories, couple Fed speakers. PPI is on Thursday, so there's a gap in between CPI and PPI. Sometimes it's one day after, but we got CPI Tuesday, PPI Thursday, of course, jobless claims, and Michigan sentiment on Friday, retail sales and industrial production as well. So last week was pretty quiet with the economic calendar. This week, It's not quiet,
Not so much.
not so much. Which I embrace that, right? That means
Yeah, me
opportunity.
too. Absolutely. We just have to make sure that we don't get in front of our skis.
Yep.
Um, that's just the hardest thing about trading. You want to engage, but it's really important to make sure that you're trading with an actual edge. A lot of us don't know how to find that edge. I like looking for the edge in the simplest way by seeing where the big traders are positioning and then waiting for the revisit of that position to engage. Now, you can do it on a tighter cycle if you like. You can come all the way down to a 5-minute formation. And if I'm sitting down and I'm looking at Bitcoin and I'm saying, hey, I think it's going to come back here. Why don't I wait for my formation to break down here, right? My
Yep.
opening candlestick has the most volume. You can study it the same way and break down that space and say, all right, well, I know a bunch of buyers came in here. So if they move out and they retest, because I like to trade the retest, then, you've got yourself a good trade. It's sitting above the VWAP. You can head off to the sunset with a long Bitcoin. But you do know that if it loses this area, that's where most of that volume was, and all the support that's associated with carrying that volume, those traders are not likely to come in and give you that support. They're likely to go, "Oh, I better fill this gap," right? And so
Right.
it's just staring down, looking at where prices are headed. And I think that's you can do that on any time frame that you like. You'll just find yourself moving in and out of trades maybe a little bit more quickly, but it will give you a very good understanding of where the traders are positioning. And that's just being very simplistic about the setup.
Absolutely. We got we're coming up on an hour here. Emery, we got a
Yeah,
request in the chat for
absolutely.
a platinum chart. Have you traded platinum recently?
Sure. Not recently, but
Okay.
I have.
I have one up here as well.
Sure. Why don't you go first and
All
then
right,
I'll go?
we'll do. So we'll pull this up really quick. I haven't traded platinum much recently, but what I'm looking at just from a technical perspective, we are getting a little bit of a pullback here in platinum. Like Anne-Marie said, let's just start with the daily, right? Looking at a higher time frame, we have the first thing I'm going to look at, right, with any chart, and again, I haven't traded platinum in a little while, is the most recent high volume event that we've had, and this is on a daily, right? So just marking this daily candle, we know the high, the low, 50% of it. We can see now I'm going to start to zoom in a little bit. And on Friday, we rejected right at 50%, which has been a resistance, this 1365 area. So I'm looking at that as resistance. And then we have the 50-day moving average, which is this purple one on my chart here, 1348. So now, okay, I get higher time frame context for where we are. What I can see on this daily is that we haven't traded much above. We haven't traded in the upper extreme of that candle. We spent a lot of time in the lower extreme of this candle, right? The lower 50%. So now going to a 30-minute chart here, this 200 moving average is probably the one moving average I pay attention to on the 30-minute, and we're under it, right? We can see all this resistance here. In order for me to take a trade in platinum, now I have potential target to the upside, right? If I was to get in a long in platinum right now, the target would have to be that 50% of that daily candle, just because there's so much rejection up there. But if platinum starts coming, if the volume starts moving in platinum to the downside, which we're under this 200 moving average, so I wouldn't be surprised at that. Then I'm looking at the lower extreme of this daily candle, which is down at 1289. But right now, not really seeing much movement. Again, it's the way I usually use this session, and Anne-Marie, we're talking a lot about volume right now. This, if I look at 23 hours in the day, is usually the lowest volume time. So if I'm expecting, the expectations for the outcome of a move have to be, time wise, have to be a lot longer, right? I can't expect a $15 moving platinum in 3 minutes right now. Could it happen? It could, but with the lack of volume that we have right now, I can't expect that. But what I'm looking at is, this volume is pretty flat here. Once it comes in, we have this 30-minute range established. 1345 at the high, 1338 at the low. I'm seeing how this volume responds to this range. So if this red line leaves this range to the downside, I want to be short. Targets are going to be, we have some of these prior support levels, demand, whatever you want to call it, down here. But ultimate target would be this 1289. That might not happen today, but I would get in the flow short if volume started to leave this range to the downside. This 1365 at the upside seems like a more reasonable target on the daily if we were to see that volume push out of this range to the upside. But right now, I see no trade in platinum.
Yeah, it's pretty sticky.
Yep.
I'm seeing the same sort of thing.
Right.
I went back to look at the 3 highest volume candlesticks on the daily, and here's what we're looking at, which is that this is the perfect example of why to watch this. Let me take my Fibonacci off of here. I wanted to do a measure. Let's remove it. So get this. The closest one in the near term with the highest volume is on the 30th of July. Very big candle. The one before it, the next highest volume, is on the 26th of June. Notice the high of that candle is the high of the highest volume candle on July the 30th. Super interesting. Then June 11th, next highest high volume candlestick, the high of that candlestick ends up being the low basing range of this candlestick here. So honest to goodness, if you just go back and plot those to see where the traders go, it absolutely reaffirms the notion that price comes to where the volume is sitting. Absolutely. How long it takes to go there? Hard to say, but indeed it does. And if higher volumes come out later, then you're going to remove some of these and you're going to make more boxes in the future because recent past helps you in a more predictive fashion for near-term future. As far as this goes, it's a bunch of piano keys. So
Yeah.
it could go as high as 1435. It could come back all the way down to this area at 1230, right? And if they're right about commodities like these metals being liquidated because they need cash to do XYZ, these could have themselves a little bit of a pullback in the coming weeks overall. I don't know whether that storyboard's true or not, but we've come to an end of another session. Jay, thank you so much for visiting with me. I always appreciate hearing from you. Love spending time with you. You're very thoughtful. Very thoughtful
Yeah,
about how
I
you look at
appreciate
charts,
being
and
here,
I've
Anne
learned
Marie.
quite a bit.
We got a comment in the chat and says, I think it's Nate Silva says it's about time Anne Marie gets her own show. Anne Marie's been doing this for a little while, this market kickoff on YouTube, but I agree because I love hearing you talk about the markets as well. I think you are the perfect example of a forever student of the markets, also, right? Where
Oh,
you're always
100%.
learning, and I think it helps with your process, right? And
Yeah.
being able to see how, someone had told me last week, Anne Marie, how much I talk about volume. They came in at the buzzer chat and they were just like, volume's not a signal. And I think it's okay to say, hey, this is not a signal for me to be able to take a trade,
Yeah.
but understanding how other traders get to their analysis or their price might even help with your own trading, right? So
Absolutely.
that's one thing I really do appreciate about you. Willing to learn from anyone, and then you take it and, like you said, you dissect it. And sometimes you ask the hard questions, right? Where you might ask me something about volume where I'm just like, oh shit, do I actually, excuse my language, but do I actually have the answer to that, or am I going to make something up? So being able to challenge each other like that,
Yeah,
is
it's
great.
important. It's important. I love getting pushback, somebody going, "No, that's," I love it. I do. It matters.
Yeah, absolutely. But
Matters. All right, everybody. Thanks. We'll see Jay tomorrow on At the Buzzer, and we've got an action-packed day. I'm quite sure of it on Top Step TV tomorrow. And we've got Coach Dakota coming up in just a little bit. So put on your big boy pants, big girl pants, because I'm sure he's going to bring the heat later on tonight.
absolutely. Have a great night, everyone. We'll talk to you all soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you. Bye bye.